video lecture number 27, 2.3, The Inchcape Rock by Robert Southey. Hello dear students and dear friends. In my last video lecture, I discussed the margin activities and the figures of speech in the poem The Inchcape Rock by a very famous English poet, Robert Southey. Today too, I will continue with the same poem and I will discuss the brainstorming section and the poetic appreciation of the poem The Inchcape Rock. First, I will discuss the brainstorming section of the poem. So friends, open your textbook of English and see the brainstorming section on page number 107, or you can also see these activities on the screen in front of you. So friends, let's start with A1 activity in the brainstorming. A1 activity is narrate in groups the scene described in the beginning of the poem. Actually, while studying the poem line by line, I had already explained all these things, but still, as far as these activities in brainstorming section are concerned, I tell you the answer. Once again I repeat the activity. A1 activity, narrate in groups the scene described in the beginning of the poem. Now I tell you the answer. In the beginning of the poem, there was a clear, calm day at the sea. There were no winds and no movement in the sea. The ship lay still in the quiet waters as it could be. The ship had no motion and her keel was steady in the ocean. The waves splashed over the Inchcape rock without the sign and sound of their shock. The waves rose and fell so little that they did not move or ring the Inchcape bell. The sea was very mild and the waves were small. The abbot of Aberbrothock had placed that bell on the Inchcape rock. It floated and swung on a buoy in the storm, and its warning rang over the waves. Now the next activity, that is A2 activity. The first activity from A2, complete the following statements. A. The abbot of Aberbrothock placed a bell on the Inchcape rock because, now I tell you the answer. The abbot of Aberbrothock placed a bell on the Inchcape rock because there were dangerous rocks near the coast which would wreck the ships. Now second one, B1, The mariners were grateful to the abbot of Aberbrothock because the answer, the mariners were grateful to the abbot of Aberbrothock because he saved their precious life and their ships from the destruction by placing the Inchcape bell. The next one, number C. The result of the thick haze that covered the sky was that. The answer is, the result of the thick haze that covered the sky was that the sailors had no way of knowing in which direction they were sailing. The next one, D. The rower in frustration pulled his hair and cursed himself because the rower in frustration pulled his hair and cursed himself because he himself had cut the bell which would have rung, and the sound would have helped them to save themselves from those dangerous killer rocks. Now the second activity from A2. Given below are the events that give the theme of the poem in a jumbled form. Given below are the events that give the theme of the poem in a jumbled form, arranged in a proper sequence as per their occurrence. So friends, here 5 statements are given. These 5 statements are based on the events that highlight, indicate, or suggest or give the theme of the poem. They all are arranged, they all are here in a jumbled form. Now you have to arrange them in a proper sequence as per their occurrence in the poem or in the story. Now I just tell you the answer. First one, I tell you the proper sequence. First one, B. The abbot of Aberbrothock had placed the bell on a buoy on the rock. Second one, A. The waves were so small that they did not move enough to ring the bell at the Inchcape rock. Third one, D. Ralph bent over from the boat. Fourth one, C. There was a thick haze spread over the atmosphere. And the last one is E. Sir Ralph cursed himself in despair and in his frustration tore his hair. So once again I repeat the sequence. Proper sequence is B, A, D, C and E. Now see the next activity. The next activity is describe the qualities of the abbot of Aberbrothock in your own words. Now here you are given one diagram. In the box, the words qualities of the abort of Aberbrthok, these words are given, and against it some arrows are given, and against those arrows you have to mention the qualities of the abbot of Aberbrthok in short or in brief. Two qualities of abbot of Aberbrthok are already given. They are number 1, benevolent, number 2, big hearted. Now I tell you the rest. Number 3, helpful. Next, kind and generous. Next, humanitarian. And next, intelligent. Now see the next activity. The next activity is activity number 4. Jealousy is the most incurable defect. Justify. Actually, this is the personal response type activity. What is the activity? Number 4. Jealousy is the most incurable defect. Justify. Now I tell you the answer. When someone is in a better position of money or success or fame, there are people who feel that they should destroy that. This is jealousy. We can see people who save or who have more, and we can also work hard to reach that position. I repeat, we can see people who have more, and we can also work hard to reach that position. But when someone wants to destroy that person who has reached the better position, that is wickedness. But when someone wants to destroy that person who has reached that better position, that is wickedness. The jealous person is not willing to work for that state. The jealous person means the person who has jealousy is not willing to work for that state. They will not accept a lesser place also. So a jealous mind or a jealous mindset slowly becomes completely evil. So as the jealous persons will not accept a lesser place, slowly that jealous mind or that jealous mindset becomes completely evil. Now see the next one, the next activity. Activity number 5. But the rover's mirth was wickedness. Explain this line in your own words with the help of the poem. But the rover's mirth was wickedness. Mirth means joy, great pleasure. But the rover's mirth was wickedness. Explain this line in your own words with the help of the poem. Now I tell you the answer. The season of spring made everyone felt happy and light-hearted. The rover was whistling and singing, but this joyful mood but this joyful mood made him reckless. He wanted to trouble the kind-hearted abbot. He wanted to trouble the kind-hearted abbot. The abbot had put a bell there as a warning about the Inchcape rock. The abbot had put a bell there as a warning about that dangerous Inchcape rock. Ralph rashly decided to undo his great work, his good work. Ralph rashly decided to undo, means to remove, his good and great work. The rover was jealous of the abbot, who was blessed by grateful sailors. He wanted to trouble the abbot of Aberbrothock. Now see the next activity, that is A3 activity. Some words in the poem are related to different parts of a ship or a mariner's life. Given below are the meanings of those terms. Identify the word. Here you are given some of the meanings which are related to the different parts of a ship or a mariner's life, and you will have to just write that the name of that term or the term against the meaning of those terms. Now the first one is A, helps in steering the ship. Its answer is will. In the blue blocks against each meaning of the different parts of the ship or mariner's life, or the meanings of the terms and the parts related to different parts of a ship or a mariner's life, you have to write the answer or that term. Of course it is in one word only, it is a single word. So A, helps in steering the ship. Answer is will. B, the lowest part of the ship. Answer kill. C, floating object that shows direction. Buoy. B-U-O-Y. D, another name for a ship. Vessel. The answer is vessel. E, sinking sound. The answer is gurgling. Now please turn on the page and see on the next page A4 activity. A4 activity, the first one is ballad. Now here what is ballad that is given? A ballad, but before that I would like to tell you, I had already explained you what is ballad and what are the characteristics of a ballad in my earlier video lectures. So please refer them, listen them, watch them carefully again and again. But as it is also given in our textbook, I will read it and explain you. Ballad. A ballad is a song that tells a story, and it can be dramatic, funny, or romantic. A ballad is a song that tells a story, and it can be dramatic, funny, or romantic. Traditionally, the ballad has been considered a folkloric verse narrative which has strong associations with communal dancing. Now here the word folkloric. The word folkloric means of or about the tales or legends and superstitions of a particular group of people having common racial, national, or religious or cultural origins. Traditionally, the ballad has been considered a folkloric verse narrative which has a strong association with communal dancing. Generally, the term is used for a narrative poem which uses an elliptical and highly stylized mode of narration. Elliptical means concise or condensed. So, ballad, this term is used for a narrative poem that uses concise or condensed and highly stylized mode of narration. The technique of repetition with variation may play an important part in it. From the 18th century onwards, collections of folk or popular ballads began to be made. The form was taken up by some of the most influential poets of the late 18th century as a folkloric form of expression. A typical ballad consists of stanzas that contain a quatrain or 4 poetic lines. Some ballads have a refrain or a repeated chorus, just like a song does. The rhyme scheme adds musical quality to the poem. One famous ballad is The Rime of the Ancient Mariner. One famous ballad is The Rime of the Ancient Mariner by English poet Samuel Taylor Coleridge. Now, in my earlier video lecture, I had already explained you what is ballad, but still I repeated it. And in that I told you that The Lady of Shalott is a very famous ballad by A.L. Tennyson, and La Belle Dame Sans Mercy is also another excellent ballad by John Keats. Now you read it at home and understand properly what the ballad is. Now the next one, second one, select the appropriate figures of speech from the box given below and complete the table. Now I had already discussed the figures of speech in detail line by line, so here I don't want to waste my time. You do this activity at home and write the answers individually. Actually, you will have to write all, you have to solve all these activities in this brainstorming section at home personally and note it down in your logbook or register. Now let's go for the next activity, that is A5. The first activity from A5 is write an appreciation of the poem The Inchcape Rock. Now here we are going to write the poetic appreciation of the poem The Inchcape Rock with the help of various points, with the help of various 7 points, like number 1 about the poet or the poem and the title, number 2 theme, number 3 poetic style, number 4 the language and the poetic devices, number 5 special features, number 6 message, and number 7 opinion about the poem. Now I am going to present you the poetic appreciation of the poem The Inchcape Rock according to my own point of view. It can be a little bit different from yours perspective. The first one about the poet, poem and the title. The poet Robert Southey is a very famous English poet. He was a poet laureate of England from 1813 to 1843. He was inspired by the legendary story of a pirate who removed the bell on the Inchcape Rock placed by the abbot of Aberbrothock. This poem, The Inchcape Rock, is a story of the dangerous Inchcape Rock, the kind-hearted abbot of Aberbrothock, who placed a warning bell on the Inchcape Rock, and Sir Ralph the Rower, a wicked pirate who had cut that warning bell out of jealousy and paid the price for his evil act. The title of the poem gives us the clue that the rock is an important part of an interesting story. Now, the second point, theme. The main theme of the poem is that those who do wrong things will meet with due punishment, or as you sow, so shall you reap. Third point, poetic style. This poem is a ballad. In this poem, the story is told in stanzas of 4 lines with the rhyme scheme AABB. Now the fourth point, the next point, the language and the poetic devices. In this poem, the story is narrated in a very easy language. The poet uses many old English words like blessed, quoth, canst, hath, etc. The repetition and alliteration increase the beauty of the poem. The structure of the rhyme scheme, repetition of certain words and alliteration give the musical quality to this poem. Various figures of speech like alliteration, repetition, inversion, metaphor, simile, apostrophe, onomatopoeia are used in this poem. There is excellent use of visual imagery and sound imagery in this poem. Now, what is imagery? That is already explained by me in detail in my earlier video lectures and in earlier videos. But here I just explained what is an imagery in a one simple sentence. Imagery means creating the exact picture, creating the real lifelike picture with the help of words in a poem. Now in this poem, two types of imagery are used. One, visual imagery, and second one, sound imagery. These two types of imagery is used. Now I give you first the examples of visual imagery. First, see the line. The sheep was as still as she could be. Second, the line, her keel was steady in the ocean. Now here, both the lines depict how the ship was on the sea, almost unmoving. Third line, or the third example, the waves flowed over the Inchcape rock. So little they rose, so little they fell. They did not move the Inchcape bell. These lines in the second stanza describe the very mild sea and the small waves. Fourth example, the sun in heaven was shining gay. Now here, the sun was shining brightly and made the morning cheerful. Means it creates the picture in front of our eyes. It creates the picture in front of our eyes. Number 5, the seabirds screamed as they wheeled round. Now here, the birds seem to be flying round and round in joy like a wheel. Another example, number 6, the bubbles rose and burst around. The bubbles rose and burst around. This line creates the exact picture. This line creates the exact picture of the bubbles rising and bursting around. Number 7, so thick a haze overspreads the sky, they cannot see the sun or on high. Here, the reader is able to imagine that, or imagine, here the reader is able to imagine the fog is so dense that the sun is blocked out. I repeat, here in this line, so thick a haze overspreads the sky, they cannot see the sun on high. Here in these lines, when the reader reads these lines, the reader is able to imagine that the fog is very dense. The fog is so dense that the sun is blocked out. The sun is blocked out. This is what the visual imagery is. Now the second one, sound imagery. Now see the examples of sound imagery from the poem. The first example, and over the waves its a warning rung. This line describes the loud warning sounded by the Inchcape bell in a storm. I repeat, and over the waves its warning rung. This line describes the loud warning sounded by the Inchcape bell in a storm. Now the second one, the seabirds screamed as they wheeled round, and there was joyance in their sound. Now here these lines show an air of joy in that scene. These two lines show an air of joy in that scene. Even the birds seem to be happy as their calls seemed like they were screaming in joy, that is, joyance in their sound. Here, even the birds seem to be very happy as their calls seemed like they were screaming in joy, that is, joyance in their sound. Now the next one, the third example of sound imagery. Down sunk the bell with a gurgling sound. Here the word gurgling expresses the sound of the sinking object. Means when we read this line, we feel that something is sinking in the sea or sinking in the water. This is what the sound imagery is. Now the next point of the appreciation of the poem is special features. This poem begins with a clear and calm day at the sea. Still air and the ship in quiet waters indicate the pleasant mood. But in the end of the poem, the mood changes from mischief to wickedness. When the mist blocks the sun, this metaphor makes the story sad and suspenseful. The nightfall indicates the dark situation for the ship and its sailors. And finally, they meet a violent end. Now the next point of appreciation is this poem, or the next point is message. The next point is message. This poem gives us a very clear message. When we try to trouble others, trouble first comes to the doer. This poem gives us a very clear message that when we try to trouble others, trouble first comes to the doer. Now, the next point of appreciation is opinion about the poem. The poem The Inchcape Rock is a very nice poem with the story that has a moral. This moral is very useful even in the present time or in the present times. And the moral is, as you sow, so shall you reap. So friends, here we have discussed all the major activities in the brainstorming. Now rest of the activities in the brainstorming section must be solved by you at home. You should solve all the remaining activities in the brainstorming section of this poem at home individually, and write down them in your long book or your register on your own. So friends, we should stop here. In my next video lecture, I will explain you how to appreciate the poem and how to write the answer of the appreciation of the poem. And also I will discuss the activities based on poetic creativity. So once again, I remind you that in my next video lecture, I will discuss how to appreciate the poem and how to write the appreciation of the poem, poetic appreciation of the poem, and I will also discuss the activities based on the poetic creativity, means how to compose the poetic lines on the given situation. We should stop here. Thank you so much. Have a nice day.